Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Today is going to be a really cool episode. It's going to be a solo drop, and we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is real estate investing. So, I talk to and I coach people all the time on buying property, and we've got a lot of reach outs from the podcast about ramping up in the investing space and building wealth through real estate. So, we are going to talk about the 5 things to consider before buying your first investment property. And for those of you that are listening that may already have multiple investment properties, this is going to be a refresher, but really this is here as a tool for you to be able to share with your community. And hopefully people can really play hopscotch and not make the same mistakes that many, including myself, have made along the way. So this is clearly a passion of mine, a passion of our listeners, a passion certainly of the guests that we've had on. And I really think that the best way to insulate yourself from just any kind of disruption or all this crazy inflation is to build wealth via real estate. So let's jump right in. Number one. So the only way to build a portfolio and eventually become wealthy is to buy your first property. Now, that may seem pretty obvious, right? But there's really an important message here. And this message goes out to all of the overthinkers and overanalyzers, right? You can analyze something until the cows come home, but you have to take action. So, countless times I've spoken to people that say one day or the day is coming when they're going to get after it, right? The day needs to be today, okay? Everything continues to get more and more expensive. Rates were probably going to hang out here for a little while, I would imagine. So, don't wait until the opportune time because there's never the right time to get in the market. The right time to actually get in the market, in my opinion, was yesterday. So there's also a really cool Zig Ziglar quote that I just want to share with you guys. The quote is, "There are no traffic jams in the extra mile." And I think what he meant by that, and my interpretation of that, is by doing the work, by doing the due diligence, by going out and touring property, you're doing one extra step than the competition. You're doing one extra step to get your family in a position to be able to live the life that you want to live eventually when you're ready to start working. So, another key part of this number one tip is, how do I pay for this, right? What many people don't know is that there's creative ways to finance properties, especially if you're listening to this episode right now and you don't currently own a primary residence, you're still renting, and maybe you have, a partner, significant other, the family situation is not complicated yet. The best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is to buy your first property via FHA or VA financing if you qualify. You can do it for as little as 3.5% down or 0% on a VA, and you can go all the way up to 4 units, which is really incredible. And that's really, in my opinion, the quickest way to get on the path of building wealth. Another key component here is, what kind of property are you going to buy, right? If you're going to buy FHA, I don't even see why you would bother buying a single family home if you're able to get a 2, 3, or 4 family property. So, number two, what type of risk tolerance do you have? Are you going to be hands off? Are you going to be hands on? Are you okay with the occasional call on a Saturday that the hot water heater blew up? Are you okay knowing that you might have to replace 100 feet of curb? Ask me how I know. Currently going through this right now with one of my properties, and it's not really pleasant, but I keep my mindset right. I stay focused. I really stay in the vision that this is all happening for me, not to me. And it's a great learning experience. That's at least what I'm telling myself. So, do you want to have a condo, right? Condos, townhouses tend to be for the people that are a lot lower on the risk tolerance scale. Somebody that's higher on the risk tolerance scale may jump right up to a distressed multifamily. So that would be one of the main things that I would consider. And I would start to take some notes. I would start to really self reflect on what kind of investor do you want to be. The third thing and this is really, really important, guys, is do you have your team in place? So many people may think, well, who's my team, right? So you obviously need a great realtor to be able to find you property. You need a great insurance person. You need a great attorney. And then I think even more so, once you purchase the property, you have to have the right vendors in place. So plumbers, electricians, roofers, handyman, painters, you need to have all these people that you're able to text when you have a problem. You're able to reach out to if you're in a jam or something happens to on a weekend or a holiday. I think that a mistake that many people make when they first get into the investing world is they don't have these ducks in a row. Then what happens is there's a compounding effect, right? Oh, wow, the roof is leaking. Plus, the electrical has an issue in this apartment. Now I have, a situation where somebody didn't pay this month. What happens is it's a compound effect, and then you start to feel like you're losing control. And then people say, landlording sucks, or I don't want to be a landlord. So, what I will say is it's not for the faint of heart, okay? But if you stay focused on the fact that you're playing the long game, like this is the long game, guys, you're not going to get rich off one property. But what you are going to do over time is you're going to benefit from principal pay down, appreciation, tax advantages, rent increases. We've seen incredible rent increases over the past few years. So as long as you're playing with the end in mind and you know that you're not going to get rich off the first property, you're really going to be in a position to grow wealth for yourself and for your family. The fourth thing is, what kind of reserves do you have? Okay. One of the things that I might have done differently in the beginning is I might have had a little bit more reserves. So I'm pretty high up on the risk tolerance, ask my wife. Um, and I'm able to take a little bit more pain than a lot of other people. But I can remember the first property that I bought in 2010. I can't believe it's almost 15 years ago. But it was a three family. Two of the heating systems were ancient. I can remember in really cold nights wondering or thinking to myself, like, oh my God, what will happen if the heat dies in both units because we had issues with both the systems? So, my suggestion is to have some kind of contingency plan in the event things go sideways. I don't think that this needs to be a lot. I think personally, a healthy reserve budget for each property you own is probably about 3 to 4 months. Many people may say it should be a little bit more, but I think it depends on the condition of the property and then also your personal financial situation. The fifth and final one is, how are you going to get property number two? So, one of the most impactful conversations that I had with my buddy and mortgage lender was, how am I going to play hopscotch to get to the second property? So, what happens, guys, is that after you start to buy property, your tax situation starts to get a little bit more complex, especially if you're building a family. You're thinking about upgrading your primary residence. So you really need to work with a trusted mortgage professional, maybe a trusted financial person, and make sure that your ducks are in a row so that you're not, writing everything off and then you're not able to get approved for the next loan. So that's a really crucial component. And I would be thinking with the end in mind, and the end in mind is, how do I get to where I want to go with the least amount of pain possible? And another one of my mentors said this, but the worst thing you can do is achieve a big goal without lining up another goal right behind it. So I would rewind that, I would listen to that again, and I would start to think about, where am I going and how am I going to get there? And real wealth is created by owning businesses, owning assets. We're getting ready to see a lot of distressed properties coming on the market. I track foreclosures very heavily. The foreclosure list is growing. There's commercial properties that are vacant. It looks like the wild, wild west in some of these communities because the grass is overgrown. There's nobody in the parking lot of like 50 to 100,000 square foot buildings. So I think that there's going to be an incredible opportunity coming in the next 12 to 24 to 36 months. The key is, though, to go back to number one, you have to get started. It's great to talk about what you're going to do. It's great to put it out there to the universe, but you really have to buy property. You have to take action. So I fell victim to this as well in the beginning before I started buying property. And I would run numbers on property, and then I would say, okay, well, I'm going to make, $700 to $800 a month in cash flow. That's not going to change my life, right? But then I started to think about the compound effect that we just talked about. And now you have one property, two properties, three properties, four properties, five properties. What happens is the rents start to go up, the principals start to go down, the property appreciates. So now you're also building your net worth while you sleep. And it's really a beautiful thing that can occur. And then the cool thing is once you start to pay down your properties and you start to get like militant about that, eventually you're in a situation where when the rates go back down, you can do a cash out refi, you can pull a line of credit on a property to go out and buy another property. So here's my suggestion, guys. I would make today the day that you decide to commit to building wealth through real estate. The good thing is that everyone that's listening to this podcast right now, you have a choice. So the only thing you have to do is you have to decide that today is the day that I'm going to start building wealth via real estate. And in this current day, in this current year, in the current era that we're living in, there is zero excuse that you can't get started, okay? If somebody finds a property and they can't pay for it and it's a screaming deal, I promise somebody will partner on the deal with you. If it's a great deal, I'll partner on the deal with you, right? You just have to get knowledgeable enough to the point where you're dangerous and you can speak intelligently about the property. I would also start going to meetups. I would start talking to, the local community. I would listen to podcasts. I would read books. I would do whatever I could to get to that first property as quickly as you can. So that's it for today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. Most importantly, I hope you go out and take action. Take care.